Welcome to Kegels and Coffee. My name is Isabel and I'm your host. I have a quick announcement to make. I will be publishing bi-weekly moving forward, and I may decide to go back to weekly once I'm back in Colorado and settled in. And now to my next guest, Wendy Dice. Wendy was born in Leeuwarden, Netherlands. Her parents were both artists and lived a very comfortable life in a country that was democratic, took really good care of its citizens, and also supported the arts. She was only 5 years old when her family decided to go on an adventure and take a trip to the Pyrenees. After crossing France, Wendy's parents saw a tiny village in the distance and decided to try and get to it on foot. They parked their car, told her that they would be back in an hour, but having grown up in Netherlands, their concept of distance worked in straight lines, not valleys and mountains. So by the time they got back to the car, hours had passed. Meanwhile, Wendy had decided to have her own little adventure and had scrambled onto a cliff to watch the sunset. Little did she know that the small abandoned village her parents had just discovered in the foothills of the Spanish Pyrenees would soon become her home. Completely unprepared for the mountains, and with the notion that it is always warm in Spain, her parents picked up and left the comfortable Netherlands to move to Tercui. Their first winter was spent burning their own furniture, just to stay warm. At one point, a local shepherd stopped in because he was so worried about them, and he gave them permission to use a large dead tree on his property, which actually ended up getting them through the winter. But when Wendy talks about her childhood, she actually only has beautiful memories of playing in the snow, roaming around in the mountains, and just feeling free. Originally, her parents had planned on staying in Tercui for 1 year. It was kind of like this experiment. They wanted to isolate themselves, focus on their art, and live in the mountains. But it took them a year just to even settle in. So 1 year turned into 2 years, 2 years turned into 3 years, and 3 years turned into 11 years. They did go back to the Netherlands every once in a while to visit friends and family, and also pick up some books and records. But still, spending most of the year isolated slowly started wearing on Wendy's parents. Being together without any distractions brought up conflicts that led to more fights and eventually them separating. Wendy was 11 years old when she moved to Reus with her mom. And the change of pace was probably not a bad thing. She made new friends, learned new languages, and at age 24, traveled to India. Today, Wendy and her boyfriend live in Barcelona. She has a degree in social education and currently works with teenagers who struggle with the formal educational system.
No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Like I'm gonna meditate like a badass.
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? So Wendy, I am really, really glad to be talking to you today, and I just could not resist asking you to do a podcast with me after you telling me the story the other day about how your parents went on this trip with you. And I'm just gonna let you dive right into it because I feel like I'm not gonna do it justice. Let's start there because that story just really blew my mind.
Okay. I would like to say, it was in the early 80s because I think the context of what Spain was there in the 80s is completely different to what you can find nowadays. It was a country that just came out of a dictature of 40 years. So it was very, very young country that just was touching democracy. I think it's something really important to put in context. So when my parents, they were traveling around France, the south of France, they decided one day to cross this country that was very like different to Holland, of course, where democracy was a very young thing, and they came out of a dictature, so it was a very adventurous for them, very unknown. So they were allowing themselves to go in the unknown. I was very little, so when you're a child, you just go with them and you're just letting yourself flow with them and happy to share the time with them. And they fell in love when they crossed the Pyrenees. They really, really fell in love with the area of the Pyrenees of Spain, of Huesca and of Catalonia. And driving around there, we used to sleep in the car or in a tent or in different, I don't know, sometimes in houses that were abandoned at that time.
Wow. How old were you, can I ask?
I was 4.
Yeah. And you have memories. You have a lot of memories.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories. I remember, and we ended up in a very small village that is called Espils in Pallars Jussá. That's in the area province of Lérida, but in the Pre-Pyrenees. And we stayed maybe 1 or 2 weeks there. And from there, you could actually see a village very far away, two mountains on the other side, on the top of the village. And my parents, they say, wow, we have to get there. But how do we get there, And here's the funny thing about Dutch people. Dutch people, they think in straight lines, It's very flat there. So they don't know. They do know a lot about water, but they do have no clue about mountains. So they wanted to get to that village, and they didn't see any roads, straight line going there. So how do we get there? And they decided, it looks very close, because this is the thing about mountains. Things can look very close, but if your mind works in a straight line, then the distance is also in a straight line. But mountains are different. And they never did any mountaineering, absolutely nothing. Yeah, really nothing. So they decided, they were going to see how to get to that village, to get to know it, because it looked very abandoned, so very adventurous. And, they were in the mood to I think they were in the late 20s. So you can imagine the kind of energy they had.
Wow, so young.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, let's go there and find out. And the thing is, they put me in the car. I hope not. I'm worried about who's going to listen to this, okay. Yeah.
Child abuse,
yeah. It was the 80s, They give me some, this sweets. I don't know why, but I do remember
ones?
the sugus. They were square.
Yes.
And they were like soft candy. And you had them in lemon flavor, and strawberry flavor, and banana flavor. And they had blue paper and green flavor. They were very
But they
square.
were not chewing gums. They were actually...
No, they were like
I'm trying
sweets.
to remember, because I know we had the Hubba Bubbas, but those were chewing gums, square ones with banana flavors. These are actual... And they were from Holland?
Maybe not, actually. Maybe they were from Spain, and
maybe they were from Spain, because I don't think in Germany we had those specific ones. But I love how you remember childhood candy, because I feel like I have those kind of specific memories about candy when I was young.
Yeah, they decided, my parents, they put me in the car, and they said, and they gave me those candies, and it's like, you be comfortable with this. We are going to walk to there, and we are going to come back, and this is going to take us maximum 1 hour. Yes, of course, in a straight line. Yeah, of course, you're right. Very good. How you say that in English? Very good perception of distance.
Oh, right.
If you come from Holland, where everything is straight line and flat, so it was in midday. I cannot obviously not remember what time of the day it was, but the straight line was a bit longer and more complicated than they thought, because they had to go down, they had to go up, they had to go down, and then they had to go up. So 1 hour became, maybe I can calculate from now 4 or 5 hours, and I was in the car.
Wow.
So what do you do when you're 4 years old and all your sweets are already gone?
They have run out. What's
they
next?
have run out. What is the next? You start to get bored.
Yes.
So you open the door and you go for a walk. Yeah. And it started to get the sun went down, and I went for a walk. I don't remember to be afraid. I don't remember it was just like, oh, I'm on my own, so I'm gonna enjoy the surroundings. And I trusted my parents. I don't know. I didn't have any bad feelings or anything like that.
Wow.
Then my parents told me afterwards, because I don't remember anything, that they came back. It was at night already. That is what I do remember. But I was sitting with my legs like some 20 or 25 meters away from the car with my legs on a cliff.
Wow.
And like doing this typical child thing you do when you sit on a chair, like
doody-doody-doo
with your legs, And
oh my God.
So my mother saw that, and she got really hysterical, and my father cooled her down and said, don't go there like this, because if she makes some kind of false movements, she can actually fall. She can get scared. So don't do anything. And then he went there and say, okay, Wendy, don't move. Stay where you are. I'm going to get you, like as a play. He used to play a lot with me, and then he got me, and I was happy and fine, and nothing went wrong. But then they always explained to me that story, like that is the first time they had a real perception about what mountains are and how much respect you also have to have for them, because they didn't know.
Wow.
And they did discover the village. The good thing is it was completely abandoned except for one house that some people went to live there like 3 years before we started to live there, because that's the beginning of a long story.
Yes,
actually.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm so on the edge of my seat.
Okay. The thing is, they realized that to get to that village, they had to turn around like some 30 kilometers, actually, go to another valley, and from that valley there was a road to get up to this village. What was typical what you find in mountains, no? Sometimes you have to go all around, and then you can get to the top of that village. So we went there, and we were welcomed by these two friends, actually, Salva and Miquel. They were living there, and they were, from Lerida, and they wanted to find a cheap house, and they were rebuilding these houses that were kind of abandoned in the 50s and 60s. No, maybe also 40s, 60s, and there was a period after the civil war in Spain where people were going to the cities to look for jobs, because the situation, sometimes water supplies, or after the war there was also a lot of famine, and with the dictature the people it was not a very socialistic state, so people were going to the industry and looking for jobs there. So a lot of villages in the Pyrenees, they got abandoned in those times. And in the 80s, there was this movement of young people in Spain, especially, that were kind of like wanting to go back there and starting an alternative lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah.
And those people, Salva and Miquel, they were actually kind of looking for this kind of lifestyle. So they allowed us to stay in their house for free, actually. I have really good memories there. And one of them, Salva, has no arm. He had a car accident. For me, that was something as a child, like...
Very interesting and new,
very new. Yes, someone without an arm and doing everything. And he was a painter.
Wow.
He is a painter. He still paints. And in a village, rebuilding a house with one arm, how strong that is.
That's inspiring to see, especially as a young child,
Absolutely. And they kind of opened up the possibilities for my parents, that they kind of fell in love with this village. It's called Tercui. And it's a very old village. It is more than 1,000 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those houses had been abandoned, and it was pretty much legal at that point to like squat in these houses and rebuild them, right?
No, we didn't squat.
Not squat, but like rebuild them. I mean, basically just use them.
No, we had to buy them.
Oh, you had to buy them.
Yeah,
okay.
It was not.
And from whom?
That's the thing. Thanks to Salva and Miquel, we kind of could find one of who was the owner from one of the houses.
Who'd gone to the city.
And yeah. So with the, I don't know how you call it in English. In Spanish, you say registros.
Yeah, it's like the registration of like the ownership or something like this.
You have to go, and then you know the name of this person. So
the title, I think they call it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, something
I don't know. So I mean, in the 80s, those things go a bit more slowly because you don't have, everything was on paper at that time. So it took some time. But I do remember that, of course, we went back to Holland, and then my parents and me, we came back to the village in the next summer. And we opened the house, and one of the houses that was in the middle of the village, on the little plaza. And finally, they did, I don't know how, but they did found the owner, and he came to, I remember, because I was in that house. There was an old, where they put babies in, crate?
Crate, I think.
Crate,
yeah. Gosh, my English is not good right now. I have been in Spain for too long. I think it's a crate, I think.
And I was, as a child, I was in love with that thing. It's like, okay, we're gonna live here for a time, good. And I wanted to actually sleep there because it was quite big.
Oh, it wasn't small for little babies. It was like a bigger one.
A little bit bigger. I could still sleep there. And then this man came there, and he was like maybe 50, 60 years old. And he said, I was born in this house.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I say that the only thing that I want to take from it before I sign the papers to sell it to us, to my mother and my father, is the crate.
No, and he took it.
Like, it was really sad.
Oh no!
No, it's a beautiful story as well.
Yeah,
because
I love it, and it is an historic thing for him to bring with him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I totally understood. And then to see the owner was like, oh, in this village that is completely abandoned, there used to be life once.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
For me it was like, it really there, because for me it was, when you come to a place and all the houses were empty, and it felt like, because as a child I would go in the houses and there was old oil and vinegar and plates, and as
like
people,
a ghost town.
Yeah, as if they left in a hurry or something.
Yeah, like some crazy thing happened, and it's like almost spooky.
Yeah.
It became reality when he came.
Yeah,
it's like it actually like became life.
Yes. So here people really used to live, and they decided one day to go to the city and leave, no? But yeah, so and then we kind of, with time, once a year, I think in June, many family members from all the houses, they would come and go to the church and do a mass and do a festivity for 2 days. The Fiesta Mayor, in Spain they have always Fiestas Mayores. And they also did it in Tercui, lucky enough. So that brought even more memory to something that was there so quiet and so, like abandoned, but also quiet. It's not just abandoned. It's like there is such a deep silence there.
Yes.
It's very crazy.
When you guys left Holland, did you, so your parents just sold the house or where you were staying in Holland? Did they just...
we didn't have any, no, they were like my parents I think they were in a time in their lives that they were still looking for what they wanted to do with their lives.
Yeah.
So I actually...
so young.
Yes. And my mother was maybe 30, because 30, 31, and my stepdad, my dad actually was 27. So because and they had this full energy to look for things and they also were big into art. They both went to the art school, so they're very. Nowadays I do understand them, but at that time I looked at them sometimes like,
you're crazy.
They're crazy,
Yeah, totally.
Like, hello, you live in Holland,
Yes.
Where you get everything. It's really an easy country in the sense like, you have really good healthcare. You can study arts and actually live from that in Holland. This is a fact.
That is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you don't think about becoming a famous artist. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you can actually really think about something you like to do and make a work out of that.
Which is incredible.
That's a luxury.
To have that support.
Yeah, it's a state support. It's not because you come from a rich family or something like that. Like in other countries, or you are lucky, or I don't know. You have to be realistic. No, it's not always as easy. And also, I mean, I grew up. Going back a bit to the story, how we ended up there. So they bought the house, and then they bought it really cheap, like for no money, because it was, if they didn't buy it, it was going to fall down eventually.
Right. Was it one of, like here in Cornudea, was like made out of stone or
yes,
made out of, okay,
completely out of stone. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, there was a time in the 80s that people used to go to these abandoned villages and steal the how we call that, the things that you have on the roofs?
The bigas. Oh no, tejas.
No, tejas.
Okay, so here's my bad English again, because I can think of the German word. It's like basically the... what are tejas in English? Come on, we can do this.
I can say it in Dutch if it helps.
Yeah,
Tegel.
what is it? Tegel. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's basically it's almost like a ceramic that sits on the roof, like pieces of ceramic sitting on the roof.
Red color.
A bit. Yeah. I think the listeners will understand. I think we're both kind of halting here, but yeah, because those are worth a lot, so people would take them.
Yes, so they can
build their own other house.
Yeah, and or sell them eventually, because that's a lot of work in it. And when you do that on a house, so this is what happened in a lot of those abandoned villages in the Prepirinei of Aragon and Catalonia. The water starts to filter in the stone walls of those houses. As soon as that happens, you have to build the walls again,
all over again.
Yeah. So the owners, for example, this man that came that day, he didn't really want to sell the house because he was attached to it. He was born there, but he realized that if I don't sell it and I don't do anything with it, then it's better that someone else has it and enjoys it and saves it from absolute destroyed,
yeah.
And that's what it happened in the village in the last 40 years, I actually would say, in many houses that eventually didn't get sold. Yeah, but some of them that were sold and people reinvest into it so that the roofs were really good, and then eventually even live in there. They are still there, so that's the beauty of it, to save those villages.
To save those villages and those old buildings that otherwise would have just fallen to the ground basically eventually.
Yeah. And so they bought the house, but then of course this is another funny story about Dutch people in the mountains. Yeah,
I love it. Dutch people in the mountains. I might have to use that as my title for the podcast.
Okay. We went there in the summer of 80. I think it was 1985. It was our first summer there, and we bought the house. They bought the house. Okay. And then we say, okay, we want to stay here and start to put energy in rebuilding the house. And, Spain, the weather is great. We come from Holland, where the winters are really tough. But in Spain, winters are great, so no problem whatsoever. We are going to have a great time, a great spring, autumn, and a great winter, and it's going to be warm, because that's what happened in Spain.
Yes.
So the thing is, they did rebuild like some holes that were in the walls. They did, my father and mother with their own hands. They rebuilt the roof in places that were a bit dodgy. And we put in a kitchen and a fireplace that worked well, and the beds, of course, that was it. Very basic things. And we had one car that was a Diana 6, so it has 2 horses of potency to go up the mountain. So don't expect much out of that. People usually have jeeps, to drive around there. And then the winter came and it started to snow.
Oh my God. So they just did not even expect that.
Not at all. And we had no wood supply at all.
But you had a fireplace.
Yeah, we had a fireplace, but without wood supply, you don't do much. And the temperature started to go really down. I mean, I have really good memories from that time. Really good memories, because I was every day outside playing with the snow. But it didn't stop snowing for a very long time. And my parents started to worry because, we didn't have any water. You had to go with a car to go to a fountain to pick up water, drinking water.
Right.
And there was more than a meter snow, and you have to keep yourself warm, and there was no wood because they didn't make any wood supply, because in Spain it's warm. Those things don't happen. So eventually they were so desperate, I do remember that they started to really put in the fire furnitures and doors. We had to survive, like literally.
Your own furniture?
Yeah.
You couldn't go to the old abandoned houses and find old furniture?
To some extent, if you understand the fact that a man came for the creek where he was born into, you cannot do that. Those are not your houses. Yeah, even though they are abandoned, it's still it's
unethical to go in there and just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do got, how you say in English, pastor.
Pastor, a dog?
No, a person that takes care of sheep and goats.
Oh, a person. Oh, sorry. I thought of the pastor because I thought sometimes they use pastor for the name of the dog that also herds the sheep. But this is the sheep herder, the actual person.
Yeah, the person.
I think it's called sheep herder.
Sheep herder. That's a pretty difficult word in English.
Yeah, but I don't know even if I get that one right. I'm not sure.
Yes. There was a sheep herder that, suddenly there come two Dutch people with a child living there in the house. So he was very curious. So he came to talk to us during this process. And in the winter, he realized that we were isolated, no car, like no way to, and no food, no wood supply. So it was a very, very simple old man. I do remember him. But I didn't know this story. My mother told me, like, I think half year ago, because I do remember them burning doors and furniture from inside the house to survive, and melting the water from the snow to have drinking water. Right, I was about
to say, because that's the only way then to have drinking water. Yeah. You have to melt the snow.
Yeah, and then he came and he said, look, on my grounds, like a couple of kilometers far away, there is an old tree that already died. You can use that wood. So he gave us his wood from that. You cut it down and you have a wood supply. But, someone had to give you that. You cannot go and take it, like, because it looks abandoned, but every ground is from someone. And then, there's a whole thing behind. And he gave us this tree so we could survive that winter.
Wow.
Later on, we did realize that it was one of the most extreme winters in Spain for the last 50 years or something like that.
Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, no.
Not only just the winter in the Pyrenees, but the most extreme winter that had happened.
Very, very long time. Yeah,
what really. A challenge. I can't even actually imagine that you had made it that long just by burning your own furniture, because that can go pretty fast. I mean, a chair is like, what, a day? You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of time you have. You buy yourself with like burning your own stuff.
I do remember that we spent a lot of time in bed.
Yeah, exactly.
To keep warm.
Yeah, to keep warm. You just stay in bed.
Yeah.
We were long nights in bed into the mornings. Yeah. I just had to think about that crate that you fell in love with. Thank God the owner took it, because you would have burnt it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he has it. At least he has it.
Yeah. I never realized that actually, but yes. Yeah,
it was.
It was going to happen.
It was going to be burned.
The thing is, you're right that chairs burn fast, but in the bodega from the house we bought, so usually in this area in Spain, the people had how you call this? I have to say it in Spanish. hopefully you can know what's the word in English, barriles, where you put the wine in, and they are made
Barriles?
of oak tree
Oh,
wood.
yeah, yes, I know. Barriles are almost like wine shelves, right?
They are very big.
Oh, no,
and you
they're
can-
the actual containers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're called wine...
Barrels?
Gosh, my barrels. Yeah,
Barrels?
my English
Yeah.
is so bad right now. Yeah, wine barrels. I think that's what it is.
So I do remember the smell of the oak tree wood and the smell of wine together burning.
Wow.
And that wood burns very slow and
Slowly, yeah.
brings a lot of heat. So that saves that as
Oh,
well.
okay. So you
Yeah.
had some of those.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
They were worth a lot of
A
money.
lot. Yeah, I know. I was about to say because they use
you-
them and
if
they
you
reframe.
sell
They don't
that-
even make them that way
No,
anymore.
No.
Oh my!
It's like
goodness.
okay, that was we had to that was the what, and also eventually we got a lot of space in the basement, so that's fine.
Yeah. It actually
yeah,
cleared up
yeah,
some
yeah,
room
yeah.
for some other
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that you were actually going to use. You know.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What did the kitchen look like? Because you said you built a kitchen, but obviously it wasn't a modern kitchen with a gas stove. Like, what was the situation
no,
there?
it was one of those kitchens. I only have seen it afterwards. I only saw them in England. It's like this metal piece of kitchen that you put the fireplace down, and then you have a little oven on top, and you have like this iron plates. I think it's a very typical. It was there already. So,
It was already there. Okay,
we could use that. And also, on the other side, you had the fireplace where people also hang on a chain. Some you could make soup or hang some meat and do there some things. I don't know. It was a very heavy kitchen. It's still there actually. It's still
so
being
that
used.
house is still there. I have so
Yeah.
many questions. My brain is currently exploding. But one of the things, okay, so leaving Holland for you as a young child wasn't hard. It wasn't like you left a best friend and you were screaming and having a fit or anything. That you
No,
were like,
I was
okay,
too
let's
young.
adventure, let's go. And then you got there and you're like, I get to play outside all the time, which I can relate to because I grew up in a very tiny old village in Germany, and I spend most of my time, no matter what time of the season, outside. And I feel until this day so lucky to have the childhood that I had. And I swear, Wendy, it was until this day, I think the happiest time of my life. I'm curious. Well, my first question, how many years did you stay in that house? And then I would love to hear more about your own personal experience as a child.
It was complicated. It was really great. Nowadays, in retrospective, I look back and I'm really thankful because it gave me a sense of freedom and love for the mountains that I cannot stay without it. And it challenged me in many ways that I don't think more than if I would have grown up in Holland, and we were already in the countryside in Holland as well. Because the mountains, they make you feel tiny. They make you feel humble.
Yes.
And that is something that, to grow up with that, to see yourself being so small, so little, no matter it's like they are so majestic, and they bring you a lot of changes in temperature, in extreme hot, extreme cold, and ice and snow, and no water, and then there is a lot of water. You get in touch with the very wild side of nature.
Yeah, storms, lightning.
Yes, especially.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I'm absolutely so thankful that I experienced that. I have, but my parents, they went into this adventure not thinking too much about what they were doing. They were just, going for it. And I didn't know. I did when I was in my 30s. I actually asked them, what was your plan in the moment that you wanted to go walking to there and get to know this empty village, and eventually you decide to buy a house there. And they said they wanted to live there for 1 year and then go back to Holland. That was their plan.
Oh, that was their plan.
As an artistic experiment.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was no plan really on living there, but it was so tough. Everything was so hard. Like, first year they bought the house and they thought, okay, we're going to stay here for 1 year. And then they had to burn the walls and the walls, the furniture, and there was no water. And the people from the village were coming with the donkey to see if we were still alive in that winter, like for real. And everything was so tough. So they had to invest a lot of energy in it. And then 1 year became 2 years. And 2 years became 3 years. And so on. So it evolved without really an intention. And then there was a moment, we still used to go a lot to Holland and stay a long time in Holland. So we used to, after, for example, this winter, my parents, they got fed up with it and they needed to buy new books in Dutch and to buy music in Dutch and to see friends and to spend some time into civilization, because we were very isolated as well. What does some things in your mind. So we were going back to Holland and stay there for 3, 4, 5 months. Yeah?
Usually in the summers or in the winters?
After the first tough winter, that year they did it in the springtime, spring, summertime. But then I had to go to school.
Right, I was about to ask you. That was another question I had.
So then they eventually had to adapt a minimum to my school periods. And in Spain, you have like 3 months in the summer off. So then we would go to Holland in the summer times.
And where were you going to school?
In a small village that was 3 kilometers down from Tercui, from the village where I was living.
Did you walk there or did they drive you every day?
They wanted to drive me every day there, but I want to be independent. I didn't want my mother to bring me to school after a couple of time. I don't know if it was maybe after 1 month or 1 year. In my mind, it was quite early actually. Yes. So I told my mother I want to go alone walking to the village, and I did. So yeah, I was.
What is it?
alone.
I'm trying to think, because I walked to school, but it was definitely not 3 kilometers to walk to school. How long does that take for a child to walk 3 kilometers?
I don't know. 3 kilometers for an adult is 45 minutes. For a child, maybe. I was quite fast.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so maybe 1 hour, because your legs are a bit smaller. But I would run, actually.
Yeah.
I would like lolly, like a goat in the mountains. So
it's like Heidi in the books.
Yes,
For sure.
Yeah.
And so 1 year turned into 2, into 3, into 4. How long did you end up staying there?
Until 1991. So that would have been, I think.
You were like 11 then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And during that time, did more and more people come and immigrate into this like little village and do the same that you did, or?
Not during the first 10 years. My parents, they got divorced. So my stepfather, he stayed there, and I went to live to this area of Tarragona with my mother. While we were living there, nobody else was coming to live there, but people were coming to visit, like especially friends from Holland. So, and also, they were still always in contact with other artists and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it must have been a nice little escape for other people.
Yeah,
this
for
beautiful
Dutch
village
people,
in the Pyrenees.
Absolutely. So I guess it was not something they pretended, but eventually my father was very, very worried about the fact that if nobody was going to invest in the houses that were still standing, they eventually were going to fall down, because you have to take care of the walls and the roofs. Otherwise, time goes by and
disintegrate. They just disintegrate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he started in the 2000s. So I think 20 years later or 15 years later, to see if he could sell the houses to Dutch people.
Wow.
That wanted to have like a second house, a holiday house, because Dutch people eventually have a lot of money to invest. Yeah, and he thought that maybe a good option, and I can help to find the owners, so to make it easier for those people, so they know to whom they have to buy it, and also because I live here, then I can always, there's always someone
I can
trust
help
and can see that everything is fine and can help with some things.
So he was successful in doing that.
Yeah. So the village is now still standing.
Wow, Wendy,
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
Yeah.
I've got goosebumps right now.
No,
This
that's
story
nice.
is so cool. I
Yeah.
love that story, and I love what you were saying earlier when I was like, "Thank you so much for being willing to do a podcast episode with me." And you're like, "Yeah, I would like to do this in honor of my parents," and that touched me so deeply because that story is so inspiring.
Yes, it is actually. I was talking to my mother a couple of days ago that my father has made a book of the story of 40 years of Tercui, and the first 10 years is when my mother and my father were there. My mother is a photographer, so she took all the pictures. They were very, very beautiful. And the 1st of May, actually, they are going to give in Tercui, in the village, a whole day of celebration as how they... With a photo book, how they the village evolve and is continuing to live, and I think it has been really for them one of their life projects without knowing.
Absolutely, without plan, without knowing,
plan.
it just became.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I just love the free flow of it and how
Yeah.
it evolved on its own and became
Yeah.
this beautiful thing and basically like made this village something so special.
Yeah. And also everything that comes with it is, I think it's very important because if we go deeper into it and you ask yourself, because I had to ask myself this to try to understand, you come in an age, I think in your late 20s, that you kind of start to try to understand why your parents take some certain decisions.
Right.
I don't know if you had that, but I think many people has that. And I kind of like... why do you leave comfortable Holland, where as an artist you can actually have more chances to live from that, and you go and live completely isolated on the top of a mountain, and you stay there. What was not your plan? Yeah. So hello, and Spain is tough. Not now, it's easier, but I can assure you that in that time, people were like, for example, my mother. As a North European woman, it felt really closed up because women still had a role to play inside the house at that time. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
And a woman wouldn't go to a bar to have a coffee or a beer.
Wow.
Yeah. While in Holland, that's really normal. You actually go to a bar to socialize.
Right.
Yeah?
Right. Yeah. Same in Germany. Yeah.
And here you go to a bar and then you're a woman and they look at you like, what are you doing here? You are not a respectable woman.
Yeah.
Really, that she.
Yeah. So she
had
felt
to-
isolated in that sense.
Yeah, totally. So now and then she would pick up the car and go to Barcelona and go for some party there or here or there to get this freedom.
Get it out of her system.
Yeah,
like I'm
absolutely.
a free human being,
Yeah.
for crying out
Yeah,
loud.
yeah, yeah.
That is so
And that-
interesting. Yeah.
But at the same time, she doesn't want to go back to Holland at all. I mean, she is very in love as well with the pureness that this area has brought to her. Simplicity is one of the other words I would say they both found. They found really things are much simpler, and also I guess there is also this part that I didn't realize then, and I grew up with it. So I do understand when we talk about being with yourself in silence, what that means. Because I grew up with it. Yeah? That's. But for them, this was very new.
Yeah.
They had to face themselves. Suddenly, the house was fine. We had water. We had wood supply. We could stay there the whole year. We didn't need to go as much back to Holland because the house was packed with books. You can finish it in one lifetime. There was music. So they wanted to go do art. They could do art. I was going to school. And then there was this period from 1988 to 1990 that they were going through a lot of inner movement. They had difficulties in being so much with themselves in this experiment they choose to do. And but now when they speak about it, say that it was one of the periods I most learned about myself.
Yeah.
It was really tough, but they really saw who they really were from inside, because they had no external influence.
No distractions.
No distractions. And also because, you know, in Holland, social life is very structured and people expect a lot from you, from how you are going to behave. Yeah. And that was suddenly gone.
Yeah.
This whole pressure.
Yeah. Sudden freedom. What do you do with that?
Yeah. And and then I understood that they were actually running away from Holland and they were looking for freedom in a country that just touched democracy and came out of a dictature from 40 years. So, hello, can you explain that to me? Yeah.
Oh my
so
goodness.
why are you saying that Holland is not free?
Right.
And you look for freedom on the top of a mountain in the Pyrenees. Yes, it's like this is and I think that is actually one of the big things that it took me a while to understand them, but eventually I could, because in Holland, like, everything it's a very bureaucratic country, so everything is settled.
Yep.
Yeah. Things like, and this is not criticism to Holland, it's an amazing, beautiful country. But I think when you travel and you have the chance to live in more than one place, you have also more the capability to find a contrast.
Yeah.
And that gives you more options to see, like, okay, we do it like this in Holland, but it can be also different, and that's not better. You know, I don't know how to express that, but yeah, you don't have such a settled mindset anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. And they were finding the freedom there that they couldn't find in Holland, because the neighbors were knocking on the door at 10 o'clock because you couldn't listen to classical music anymore too loud because it was already 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's understandable. Yeah, Holland is small. There are a lot of people living in small places. So, they found a complete way of expressing themselves. And eventually, my father started to do art therapy with artists that were coming from Holland to Spain to free themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe what your parents initiated there in general, like the whole evolution of experiences and what they were able to do with the village and offer to other people, from coming in and buying houses to offering art therapy. I really loved what you said about, I just want to go back to that because I can so sympathize with this feeling of, oh, okay, now the house is done, everything is fine, and it's like silence, nothing. Yeah. Now I am with myself. And I often feel that way when things get really intense and I need a break, and I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need. You run to the mountains, you go there, you sit by the river, and suddenly it's like, oh, this is what it's like. Shit. Like, wherever you go, there you are. And you bring all of your stuff with you. Absolutely. And then you have to look at it into the face.
Yeah. Yeah. And you may not like what you find. No. That's the truth. And,
that's the truth.
They I mean, as a child, you don't see that, but I've seen like how they came into, you know, they're both their darkest sides, I would say. As a child, you're more like an observer, and I kind of saw that, and I was like, wow, why? You know, we have everything. We live in a very happy life, and why is all this coming up? And later on, I had the chance to talk as well with my mother and my father, and they both spoke a lot about this period, and they said, we suddenly, and I understand, I relate to that as well as an adult now, but suddenly they put themselves in a situation in which they had to face themselves, but they didn't have any tools to know how to manage all those, I would say, shadows was, I think is a more beautiful word, that they were facing from themselves. So that started to become also a reason why the relationship wasn't working as good anymore.
Yeah, I mean, as both of us, you know, being in a relationship, we both know you need tools. You need tools. You need to learn, first of all, how to understand yourself, and then understand your relationship, how to communicate, how to, you know, understand the emotions that are arising. I mean, that's, yeah, like you said, in those days, you know, our parents weren't doing, you know, yoga, meditation, and therapy sessions.
Not at all. Not at all.
It was just not of that generation, and,
No.
and they had to find their own ways, and fighting was definitely one of them. I mean, for my parents too, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, to be expected, right?
Yeah. Yes. Sadly, it is. Yeah. But I do feel proud of them because I kind of see that they were really trying to be true to themselves.
Yeah.
And this is tough. And I now, as a growing up, know I have faced my own shadows as well, and I know how tough that is.
Yeah.
But until I didn't face my own shadows, I actually didn't really understand their process, where they went through. And they still don't do any yoga. They still don't do any meditation. They're very like, I go my own way. Both of them. They're very cabezones in Spanish, you know?
Yeah, stubborn.
Okay, stubborn. But now they are in their 60s, and I when I sit with them and I talk to them, I think they have become really free.
Wow.
Their heart
Yeah.
is open.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have gone through their little personal hell, and they have put themselves in such situations to face that. As if the soul was wanting that. They didn't know. They were just like, okay, let's experience this and see what's happening. But then they went through it, and now when they talk back from it, say, I would do it all again the same.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It takes so much courage.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, we are all going to get old, and I really hope when I look at them and say, you know, of course, maybe I'm the kind of person that some things I would have taken a bit easier. Okay, you don't need to put yourself in such an extreme situations. But hey, everybody, its own cup of tea, you know. That's. But I think what's really important is that one can come to a how do you say it in English? Un corazón ligero.
Like lightheartedness.
A lightheartedness, and they're now going to the 70s, and they are lightheartedness, and they can talk about forgiveness and love, and not only love in a couple, but also a bit more open, universal love. And
wow, that's beautiful.
that's really beautiful. And they don't do any meditation and all that. You see,
Yeah,
so like
there are the ways.
They went through their own way of searching for that, and they fought their own battles on their way. And art was, of course, still is a very important tool.
Yeah,
I must say, because it's a way of looking for freedom from in and out. But they are there. I look at them and say, I'm proud of you guys, actually. Yeah, you
that's
do well.
so beautiful, Wendy.
Yeah.
I love that. And the fact that your dad also, like, back in those days was offering art therapy obviously shows that he was really interested in helping others, like, find that same freedom of expression.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So when you said you were 11 when you moved with your mom to Tarragona, or how was that, the transition?
I'm gonna need a break. Wait a minute.
Yes.
That was
Take some mate.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a.
We're drinking some mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate is good. I'm gonna have a little sip here.
That was for me it was a big change, because I went from living and loving the mountains to having to socialize a lot with new schools and new people, and new people from the mountains are very different. In also children that grow up in the mountains and that grow up in, you know, farmers or something like that. And I didn't have a childhood where I used to socialize or to have to socialize a lot. And then suddenly you're 11, your parents get divorced, and they put you in a school in a city.
Tarragona was actually the city of Tarragona?
No, first Reus and later Tarragona.
Okay.
And it was a complicated time for me.
Were you, like, when your parents broke the news to you, were you like, I don't want to?
I wanted to.
You were ready for some change.
Yeah, I actually told them once. I think I told my father, from, you know, if you're going to be fighting so much, why don't you split?
Wow.
I think I was 10 maybe, because I was kind of like it's not fun for
No
no
fun.
one.
Yeah, not fun for anyone. Yeah.
So why not? Why not? He kind of listened, but then he said, but it's not so easy as a child may see the things with more clarity. Sometimes I actually would say, if it doesn't work, just stop it. No, but it took some time for them to leave, to split.
Yeah.
For my mother was also very, very difficult, really, because she invested a lot of energy as well in the whole project. So
Yeah, of course. She must have also been pretty sad to leave something behind like this.
Yeah. And we moved to the coast, to Tarragona, because it was a bit more, there were more foreigners, and it was like my mother also was needing, she wanted to stay here, but as well was needing a bit more of human contact, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, I guess it was good eventually to be a teenager and be able to be in contact with more people. I also started to have Dutch friends, what I never had. And they also went, they were born in Holland and they were coming to Spain. I never had that. I was the only foreigner child at school. So I was a weirdo as a child. And then suddenly I had more weirdos around me. So I was no weirdo anymore.
Yeah.
And that was but it was still a tough time as well for my father. I knew this afterwards. As for my mother, like the first 5 years after they both split up, they went through the hell continued, but then they were not really happy because they love each other a lot. It's still nowadays they do love each other a lot.
Yeah.
But one thing is love, another thing is choosing to have a relationship with that person, I guess.
Right.
And it took until they didn't came to find peace in themselves. This needed some long process. They were not evolving anymore. So they had like this from their late 30s to their early 40s, they were kind of stuck, both of them, and they were not having any contact anymore.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, really, really intense. And afterwards, I don't know. I left home and I started to have my own life, and my mother eventually, she found her way around. No, she kind of started to become more stable and more happy, and but that took some time.
That took some time.
Yeah.
So you basically stayed with her until you eventually were like old enough to kind of go do your own thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was 19, I guess, when I left home.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I forget you. Where did you go from there?
Where did I go from there? I went to live on my own in Tarragona.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working and saving money, and then eventually I went to travel. I wanted to learn English, so I went to live in Scotland for a while, and then I traveled for like 3 years around and a lot. Went to India because I read a lot of Indian Buddhist and Hinduist philosophy, and I was really interested in that. So I said, let's go to India and see.
Very cool.
Why is there this philosophy born there and not in another place? What is it? What does it have to offer for special India? And that was I guess that was my experience, that I wanted to live.
I was about to say that was your adventure.
Yeah, that was my adventure.
Courage.
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
that takes courage. It's not a freaking tourist place.
No,
it's like
no.
If you're going, you're in it.
No, yeah,
you're in it for the experience. Yeah.
And the funny thing, actually, for my first trip to India, I went to India as if I had this attitude from, I've been traveling my whole life, I've been in France, living in Spain, living in Holland. I know what traveling is, and then I went to Scotland and I lived in Scotland, and I came really with one suitcase and looking for a job and looking for a place to live, and it all went fine. No problem. So I had this attitude. Since I was 15, I wanted to go to India.
Oh, so you
it was
knew it was going to happen.
It was going to happen. But then I had never been outside of Europe, and I didn't know what to expect. So I brought my tickets and everything. And then 3 days before I went there, I went to celebrate with a couple of friends in Tarragona in a small bar with a couple of red wines. And they said, "Oh, you're going to India, Wendy, great, let's celebrate." And they say, "Actually, a friend of mine, he went to Delhi and he got kidnapped, and then they did that and they stole his passport." And they started to tell me the stories. Like, oh my God, where am I going? Is this a really good idea? Yeah, really. So, then I realized too that India is not Europe.
Yep.
Yeah, and then... I traveled there for 6 months with like typical backpacker, traveler. And then when I came back, I felt so in love in India. I didn't want to go back. At the end of my trip, I was one of those freakies that was walking without shoes there. And it was cow poo. And I didn't care, you see? And in the beginning, I was like, everything is so dirty. And everybody looks at me and I feel so fucking afraid, sorry for the word, but yeah, I was really like, oh my God. And 6 months later, I was in Delhi sitting in a chai shop where I arrived 6 months before, and I was drinking my chai. Say, "You see those? They just arrived. You can see it in their faces, how scary they are." And it was so funny, you know.
It is such a cool transition to go through that though, and come out the other end, like that transition, and then be like, here I am. I'm on the other end of the experience. Yeah,
you can see it on my face. You know, you can't fool me anymore. And then I came back. I came back to Tarragona, and I couldn't stand European people.
Wow, that is hard.
And I remember I met a Dutch man. He was in the 60s in Varanasi. And he said, "Wendy, when you come back, don't tell nobody that you're coming back, and take minimum 1 to 2 weeks of complete isolation. Because you're
such wise words
to have a cultural shock."
Yeah.
And I say, come on. I mean, the cultural shock is when you go from Europe to India. And I didn't realize that. But he was absolutely right.
Absolutely, yeah.
My boss, he phoned me and he said, "Do you want your old job back?" And I tried, and I couldn't stand European people anymore.
Wow.
I couldn't. And then I came to this village to live here because I didn't want to see people. And I was picking up grapes here in the Priorat.
Oh, this is how you ended up in Cornwall in one sun. I love it. We're coming full circle. This is so cool.
Yeah, because this is how I ended here, because I could, work with Marroquis with Mari from to do picking up grapes, and then I would be going to the library here, pick up books, read books, and pick up grapes, and I didn't want to talk to nobody.
Wow.
I was in a cultural shock.
It
took me because India gave me so incredible match, and then I come here and people were worrying about the color of the clothes if they match, things like that. And you come from, or how things are important here in Spain then, and I'm not talking about Holland, you see, in Spain, that I found suddenly such an incredible stupidity that I couldn't bear it.
Yeah, it's such a drastic contrast.
Yeah, I had this feeling like, no, sorry, right now I can't deal with it.
Yeah,
I can't.
Yeah.
And so I decided to come here to the village and not be in the city to because I realized actually I am here the problem, not society. It's me who is finding difficult to adapt again to this reality.
Yeah. How long do you
find peace in it?
Yeah, and find peace and your own role and your own place in it again.
Exactly.
How long do you feel like more or less did it take for you to feel somewhat normal again?
10 months.
Yeah.
I
Your friend was so wise. Yeah, the transition. I mean, I have never been in India. My mom actually lived in India when she was young because her family went over there for work. And so, I've heard her talk about the cultural differences in the transitions, but I've been in other countries that are, not like Europe or not like US, like South America, for example, or Thailand, and the transitions are hard, and especially when like you spend 6 months.
Yeah,
for a long time.
The thing is also, I think I touched also something very deep in myself without knowing it that time.
Right.
I was 24, and I went to do this Vipassana thing. in Nepal. Like,
okay.
I'm in India. I should learn to meditate. Okay, where can I learn to meditate? In the Osho ashram? They're not my thing. Too fanatic. Okay, then someone talks to me about Vipassana. Vipassana, yeah, it doesn't look like they want to get your money. You know, I had this feeling like sometimes in India they want to really. No problem with that. But I found Vipassana very pure. You come there, if you do it, only if you do it and you finish it, you give money to them.
Oh, okay.
This is how it works.
I didn't know.
And it was more a Buddhist aspect. Vipassana is the meditation. It comes from Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken, from that line of Buddhism. So I thought, okay, I do understand Buddhism. I have read a lot. I have talked to a lot of. It's always something that has been very close to me since a very young age. I started reading about Buddhism when I was 13 years. It's not, I think, very normal to do that when you're 13. But so I thought, okay, I do this. I go to Nepal because in India it was already too warm and monsoon was coming. So let's go to the mountains. And I did Vipassana as an idea to integrate my trip around India. That was my idea. So I'm going to relax and to learn to meditate because I'm in India. Yeah. So that I can integrate my trip and go back to Europe while I already have digested so many experiences that I have lived here so far, you know, because everything is so different. And
I think that makes sense. The
It
thought
does
process
make
to
sense.
me right now. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Of course. And then I go there and I do this. I mean, I have now not even yoga. I cannot even cross my legs. And you go to this Nepali Vipassana place, because I do know here in Europe you don't need to sit with your
Cross-legged,
legs cross-legged. But there you do, because you are in Nepal and they do that even when they eat as a natural thing. So I was very worried. I was talking to a friend of mine with whom I was traveling, like, how do you do that? He was a yoga teacher. How do I cross my legs? I have to prepare, you know? Okay, now you do it like this. Women do it with this leg and men do it with the other legs. Okay. So I come there and I started to do this Vipassana for 10 days. It's the first time is 10 days in complete silence, men's one side, women the other side. And I touched something really, really, really profound in myself. And it was not relaxing at all. I didn't integrate anything. If anything, I even got more, another dimension opened in me that I had no idea how to digest that. And I mean, I came out there thinking what now? Do I have to shave my head and become a nun? Am I never going to have sex again? Because that's what nuns do. I was really worried about the sex part. This is so, you know, what do I do with this now? Yeah? And so, yeah, that was my thing. Yeah? And it took me like 10 months to come back from India and 10 years to actually realize what had happened to me during this Vipassana.
Wow, you had opened a whole nother can of worms there.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And like you said, at a young age, you were like an early bloomer, not a late bloomer, an early bloomer, because you started reading about Buddhism at age 13. You're like in your 20s, already in India, willing to do this crazy, you know, Vipassana retreat, which I still haven't done, and I've wanted to do it. And it's like this weird thing. It's like, when is the right time? And there's never the right time, because you have to take those days. You have to prepare. You can't just jump into it. And for some reason, I don't know why, I've been intrigued by it so much. And I bet it's not the same here to do it in Europe or in the United States, but still I find it so intriguing.
Yeah, I think it's quite the same, because the structure of the Vipassana, like from this man who created this, is the same. Like the structure is the same. And
Right.
I would say what's really important about Vipassana is the technique, and what you get out of it is the technique and yourself. So I would recommend for anybody who feels like minimum has a certain attraction to experience like no thought in your mind, like literally no thought. And I remember, I mean, the deep experience, I don't know even if to talk about that, because it's even difficult to put it into words. But I do remember that in the last day, they at the end of the day, in midday actually, they want you to start to talk, and you are 10 days without talking. And I didn't want to get out of it. I didn't want to go back to life.
Yeah.
I was really like, so I stayed in the saloon, isolated, and they went all outside and they were desperate to talk. And I started hearing the voices and people sharing, and I didn't want that. I want to stay in this quiet space.
It was like a cocoon almost. Like
there were no thoughts in my mind.
Yeah, wow.
You can imagine that.
I
No
cannot.
thoughts.
I mean, no, I cannot, because usually I have thoughts. I have moments of no thoughts when I meditate.
My head was empty.
Oh, that is incredible.
That's really incredible. And like, I knew that as soon as I was going to invest into words again and into listening, as the pattern of inner self-talk was also going to come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it all is connected.
And but I sneaked into the garden in a very small place where I could still be alone and listen to the birds and stay with this no thought in my mind feeling. And then a Spanish friend from Bilbao actually came, and he said a magic word, and he called me by my name because he knew me. Say, Wendy, ¿cómo estás? Wow. And I started crying, like as an explosion from, whoa, you just, by calling my name, you have just made me come back to my ego personality or something like that. What's okay and what has to happen, and it's part of the process. It was very magic. And he looked at me, say, seems like you had a really good time. It was pretty. And then I felt this incredible joy in my heart, like I could.
And gratitude.
And gratitude. Yeah. Really, really profound.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
It
started to rain, and there was like this Dutch girl and this Spanish girl from Bilbao. So I was wearing a Tibetan green dress, and they were always saying, you have to be quiet because there are other people, still doing meditations and stuff like that. But the three of us, we were singing and dancing under the rain, and this dress was really bad quality, so my whole skin was green, and I didn't care. I remember I was so happy, and like screaming my lungs out and like singing down the rain, and the woman that was like helping us, it's not a monk, but they were looking at us and they wanted to say please be quiet, but they couldn't. We were so happy. It was so pure.
It was so pure.
Yeah. So okay, let them,
Love that.
So that was the end.
What a story. That's actually so interesting, because I feel, Vipassana, I think, is such a personal experience and so different for every person.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I have definitely talked to people that have had a really hard time, even until the end.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, actually. I think you are the first person that has expressed such a positive experience. I've definitely had people tell me like, wow, it was, eye-opening and hard and beautiful and all of the things, but I think this is my first time hearing such a intensively positive, journey.
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, there were some times I wanted to quit, but the thing is, I think actually that what I have got from it is I went into it without knowing to meditate at all. When you are a newbie in something, you can really be
it's almost like you're more open or something, like no expectation.
No expectations.
Yeah, versus like me, I've been like practicing all these different types of meditation and therapy and yoga and kundalini and chakra. So you go in there like, oh, what is it going to be? Kind of like tense almost.
I really did what they told me to do.
Yeah, I followed instructions. Just follow instructions. Go in and do what they say.
Simplicity, because it's a very simple technique. Pure simplicity. I didn't, and sometimes there were thoughts in my mind that wanted to, question them. And when I came for questions, I sit down and meditate. That was the answer. Like, but I think I can feel my chakras. And as I sit down and meditate, but sit down and meditate. Like these people are not nice to me. Sit down and meditate. It's like, okay, now I understand it. But the thing is that I think one of the lucky things, maybe lucky, I would say, was that I was very like no any other influences from anything
completely
else.
Open,
So,
yeah. Maybe actually Spain could be a good place for me to do it. I've heard that there are some outside of Barcelona. I think Flaka was telling me about it, but yeah, I'll have to do a little research there. I am inspired.
Yeah, I want to go back as well. This is one of those things I would really like to repeat. As soon as I have time, I would do it again. Definitely.
Yeah. Wendy, thank you so much. I have tears in my eyes and goosebumps, and I feel like I would like to do like more episodes with you, because I also know, and we can leave that for another podcast, but I've also, heard you talk about sort of some of the teachings you've been interested in nowadays related to meditation and practices and emotions. And you're just a very inspiring person to me. And I've, barely known you, but the times I've been with you, your presence and your kindness and your calm and your practice. I'm not talking about spiritual practice. I'm talking about your everyday practice. Really inspires me. So.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share as well. I think that the fact that you make a voice is beautiful for me. It's the first time I talk about those things, and I do it somehow in public. And like, okay, but maybe some other person also listens to it and can relate to it, and that's beautiful to share.
It is, and it's beautiful to hear. And I mean, the other day when you told me that story, and I laughed just as hard about the story and your parents leaving you in the car, I was like, I cannot not record this story. And I was just like praying inside, I hope Wendy is willing, because not everybody can and wants to, and it's not for everyone. And I was just so grateful that you were like, yeah, sure, we can try. And so thank you so much.
Not at all. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to Isabel@kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL @kegelsandcoffee.com, or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.